Welcome to Musée du Al. We are Southern California's newest and smallest contemporary art museum. And today we're very pleased to be showing work by Joe Potts, his new series, Zombie Fairies. So Joe, I went through your CV, and it's 8 pages long. Mine's about 8 lines long. I was so impressed with the work that you've done and the places you've exhibited all around the world. But now it's partly that's your visual art that we're here to look at today, but also you have a music career as well. And I wanted to ask you, how much does your visual art career and your musical art career, how much do they interact with each other?
Well, I think it's always been all the same. I was going to say it was more separated when I first started doing the experimental music, but not really. If I think about the early albums, the pieces that were mine on the records and weren't ensemble pieces were exactly what I'm still doing.
Yeah, and do you find any kind of dichotomy in when you work visually? I mean, most people, when they think of a visual artist working, they think of somebody alone in a studio, like into the wee hours of the night. But they think of music as being more collaborative, ensemble type stuff. Do you find that's similar?
Now I think most of the ensemble stuff I do has kind of merged into this certain way of working that we started in the early 70s, which is kind of a collective mind thing, where everybody tries to merge with what's going on in the room and figure out how they can fit in. My brother Rick used to describe it as trying to build something, you know, like a tower out of blocks or something. And it starts coming together, it starts getting really good, and then you go, oh yeah, we got something here. And like as soon as you do that, the whole thing collapses.
So it's more the process of building than sitting back and appreciating a finished product.
Well, it's just collaboration, I guess. The better you can get into each other's head and into what they're doing, the better the result is. Whereas this is, what I do now is similar, except it's me getting into the viewer's mind rather than a bunch of minds being together.
So do you anticipate how the viewer will be responding to what you're presenting?
In a way, but it doesn't really matter to me. The idea is that you try to act as a catalyst and create something so it's not just a pretty picture or, like an interesting statement, but it's actually an experience.
Well, now, the show's been up now for a couple weeks, and we've been getting questions. The questions tend to fall into 2 different categories, inspiration and process.
Yeah.
And what interests me more is the inspiration. So can you tell us what came first, the zombie or the fairy? Or, why pair these 2 mythological beings together?
Well, when I first started, I found an AI program that's really simple, like ordering from Amazon, and I think there are a lot of them now, where you just put in a prompt and
A verbal prompt.
type in a verbal prompt, and then you can select like different parameters and the different templates to work within, and then just let it go. There are like different levels of detail that you can select, and then you just let it go. And if you don't like what it gives you, then you change the wording a little bit and try it again. And it's like a slot machine.
Right, but why zombies and fairies?
It didn't start out as zombie fairies. It started out as these Japanese house gods, or like trolls, and that are, depending on which myth you're reading. They can either be really nasty, really horrible, or kind of helpful and pranksters. And so I thought, well, that's kind of AI. And so I started working with that imagery in AI, and I wasn't really
With Japanese.
yeah, it looked too much like Japanese traditional prints. And so I thought, well, I need to Westernize this. I thought, well, yeah, AI is kind of like a helpful fairy that eats your brain. And, and so that's how Zombie Fairies came out. It doesn't just eat your brain, it eats everybody's brain because that's how it creates.
Right,
Just,
right.
It sucks out brains from the internet.
It processes, millions of pages of text. And
Yeah, yeah. So that's where the metaphor came from.
you use a lot of different stimuli in the work that you do, including shock, subliminal messaging, brainwave entrainment, mirror neurons, biogeometry. I know what shock is, I know what subliminal is. I don't know the other processes that you use. Maybe you could explain a little bit about that and tell us if any of it's going on here in your work today.
Yeah, well, the brainwave entrainment refers to isochronic, binaural, and monaural beats, which is made up of two of the same frequency, just tweaked so they're slightly off, and that creates the beat. And in binaural, it's a stereo signal that's the best in headphones. And the difference between the two frequencies creates a phantom third frequency inside of your brain.
Interesting.
And then the brainwave entrainment is that depending on what frequencies you use, you can theoretically tweak different brain functions, to relax you or, release endorphins or,
Interesting. So that's something you use more in your musical side.
Yeah. There's always, in what I do, there's always something of binaural beats.
Really?
Yeah, not obviously, but because they don't have to be loud. In fact, supposedly they work better if they're not loud.
Sort of under the surface.
Yeah, just kind of.
Not loud like Airway.
No.
Airway is a collaborative band that it's quite a big different than typical bands like bands that I have been in the past. Airway is more of an assault on the senses.
Airway the band came out of Airway the show in Japan, which was my graduate thesis project at Otis.
Was that your second show at that?
Yeah.
At the gallery?
Yeah, that was the second. The first one was just photos of scenes of death that I cut out of forensic pathology textbooks.
Right.
And the Airway show incorporated that imagery along with a 45 RPM record that was made up of loops of instrumental parts of Patti Smith albums.
The cover of that 45
Yeah.
had a woman holding her head back or...
Yeah. The purpose of that show was to teach the first step in CPR, which is if you come up upon somebody unconscious, you need to create an airway by, arching their neck, tilt their head back, and arch their neck to open up an airway.
I still have that 45.
And that's what the message was. My friend Vetsa was singing over and over again. And by the way, the woman on the poster is the late, great Simone Gadd.
I thought so, yeah.
Yeah.
So then from that show in Japan, you came back to Los Angeles and put a band together?
Since about 1975, I made experimental music, and we pretended to be composers, but but with nothing written down. A group of friends that congregated around Pooh Bah Records.
And this
And this
eventually
became the Los Angeles Free Music Society, which is ongoing.
right.
And anyway, so I knew all these, you know, improvising noise people. And
Right.
then I wanted to try and not recreate, but do something similar to what was on the record. And so I decided to recruit all these friends of mine to just improvise, do whatever they wanted. But nobody was allowed to plug into their own amp. They had to plug into what eventually became a homemade mixer. And then I was at the control panel, and I could control what was coming out. And so in a way, you know, I called it electronic fascism, because, you know, do whatever you want, but
I'm running the show.
yeah, I'm running it.
Well, some of your early gigs were pretty raucous.
I mean, they were really high volume. We tried to piece together every amplifier we could find, and then run it out of the
But they were
amps.
you were exploring the physical properties of sound.
Yeah, oh yeah, originally the Broadway Lace place was where we first started playing, and it was an old loft with kind of loose wood floors. And when they took it over, they kind of half-assed put drywall up, so the drywall was pretty flappy. So it became like a second speaker.
Oh, geez.
Especially since we were really directional. So the sound would come barreling out of our amps towards the front of the audience, and then it would hit the wall and resonate and come back to the back. And when they met in the center, sometimes they would create standing waves.
Oh boy.
Which I don't know if you, like, Introduction to Physics, they talk about standing waves, and they show a bridge in Washington, a suspension
I slept
bridge.
through that.
And the wind is blowing at the right frequency, and the suspension bridge starts moving. It just keeps racking and racking and racking until it gets completely destroyed. Anyway, that's kind of, to a smaller extent, what was happening in the room. The sound would, you know, create these weird, almost like balls that would move around, and also, you know, the audience would be vibrating, you know, differently from the front to the back, and
Bouncing around.
and I also had subliminal messages underneath. And there, you know, there was one show, I don't know if it's an exaggeration or not, but one of the first shows we played, people kept leaving. And, you know, by the time we ended, probably because we blew out the circuit breaker, which is what usually happened, the room was pretty much empty, and we stopped playing, and then we heard applause from outside.
But you know, also you have you use mirror neurons.
Yeah.
And how is this different from just basic empathy? I mean,
It's the same mechanism, but it's just trying to direct it, use it to direct. And, you know, I did one painting, 10-panel painting of images, like high contrast images of Christina Ricci's face. And she was in a movie where she played Lizzie Borden, and she was way overacting the emotions. and so I picked out different emotions and did 10 images. And then, you know, I had subliminals too, but the idea was, you know, you could, you know, it was kind of like playing the audience, you know, whichever panel they looked at would tweak them one way or another. So that was just kind of fun play. And then I took, I think, 84 of those images and designed tarot cards.
oh yeah.
Yeah, and the idea was that rather than reading your future, when you laid out the tarot cards, you're actually like tweaking your emotions and stuff. And, you know, the thought being you could select the emotion that resonated the most with you. And might be some way of like just predicting your day based on, based on how you were setting yourself up.
And then there's biogeometry,
Yeah.
which is, I've learned, is evident in the work here that we're
Yeah.
looking at today.
Yeah, I mean, the most obvious are these symbols called a BG28.
BG28
Yeah,
in
biogeometry 28.
so
You know, the 28 angles that represent different kind of energy resonance.
okay, and maybe we need you to describe a little bit about what biogeometry actually is.
Okay, biogeometry was created by Dr. Ibrahim Karim, and it's copyrighted. And
So are we in trouble here?
And he's an Egyptian architect. His father, you know, was really immersed in ancient Egyptian temple science. And, you know, both the temple sciences and the medicine and a lot of the ancient society, I guess, utilized design to create results. And so he developed this science that focuses on personal experience rather than, you know, being able to mechanically measure energy. And, you know, the basic tenet of biogeometry is energy plus design equals function. Whatever shapes you're putting out there are affecting the way energy transforms.
So let's get into the process a little bit here. Now you use an AI app to create the original images of the zombie fairies, and where does it go from there?
Well, you know, I create an image that looks like an image you created on AI, and that tons of people now print out on large format glossy photo paper and frame and put up in galleries. And it looks like, oh, cool, that's a piece of AI. And so I thought, well, you know, if I'm going to make this stuff, I have to make it into a compelling work of art. And so I spent a long time trying to figure out how to do it, you know, from transferring it onto wood and
I can see the work.
yeah.
I mean, not only in how much time you must have spent in learning how to do it, but here in the gallery we have 52 images, and in the whole collection there's over 400.
Yeah.
The pure scale of the output. I'm wondering if sort of sensory overload is something that you're aiming for here. Or is...
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it kind of subtly speaks to the AI process. You know, it's like
that it
a
can be
cross between a copier and a slot machine. It's like it's like running 100 copies, but every one of them is different.
Interesting.
And some of them are really terrible, and some of them are really great. So
and the terrible ones you just throw away, or
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, this, I don't know how many thousands I created in order to come up with, you know, this 400 plus batch. But
it's amazing. And then,
but I mean, when you're creating something that, you know, only takes a minute.
well, it only takes a minute to like output it.
Yeah. Well,
But
that's
there's handwork on each one of these.
Oh yeah. They're. I don't know. You want to know the process?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So I get this, you know, glossy, slick thing that looks like all other AI, and then I dump that into Photoshop, and you know, use a bunch of filters and mess with the colors and pump up the saturation. And then I print it out on this really absorbent Japanese paper that just sucks the ink into the paper.
What's the paper called?
Washi.
Washi?
Yeah, it's like traditional for Japanese ink.
For calligraphy and...
Yeah, ink washes, calligraphy, and also for painting with water-based pigment.
Okay. You printed on that?
I printed on that, and then I mounted onto wood panels.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have an airbrush with just plain water, and I go in with the airbrush, and when you wet the paper, it brings the ink up to the surface, and you can kind of, it starts to intermingle, the colors intermingle and run together, and then it can look really terrible, and then all of a sudden, it sucks back into the paper, and hopefully it looks pretty amazing. And then I put a layer of shellac on it, and it changes the color again, and gives it a really, kind of a satin finish. And it also helps block ultraviolet rays, so hopefully they won't fade too fast.
The shellac, I thought, really affects the palette of the whole series.
Oh yeah, it's kind of why everything has a real similar look to it, is what the shellac does to the colors. And that, if we want to get into the weeds a little bit.
Let's get in the weeds.
Okay, you were talking about biogeometry.
Right.
And biogeometry, I mean, the way you check different energy resonances is with a special way of using a pendulum, which is called radiesthesia, which was put together by a group of doctors, kind of.
Really?
Yeah, kind of underground doctors in France.
Of course.
Figuring out how to use procedures from the Egyptians and from certain Jesuit priests and stuff to check for sacred energy, and determine that the similar energy exists in a lot of Egyptian sites and sacred sites throughout history. The menhirs and dolmens of Neolithic man, and they all have a similar energy resonance.
Huh.
And in a lot of instances throughout history, sacred places in different civilizations have been built on the same spot. I'm thinking, about that. I mean, if you think about some of the cathedrals and Temple Mount. And,
right.
Throughout history, there's layers.
It's the place itself that has relevance and resonance.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea.
Yeah.
And anyway, so you have this way to test for the energy that creates life force, but you also have a way to check for energy that removes life force. A lot of what man has done in the industrial age is transform energy into something that living beings don't understand. And so you create something called electrosmog, and that's, according to the way I've tested it, that's what stuff printed by AI creates. I was working with this stuff and studying biogeometry, and I'd work on this in my studio, for like 4 hours. And I'd feel just completely horrible, like drained and headache and really crappy. And one day I walked in and I went, why haven't you tested this stuff? That's kind of what you're noodling with. Why don't you noodle with that?
Yeah.
So I did, and according to my test, it was the most toxic thing I've ever tested.
The AI output.
Yeah, because it's, it takes electronic impulses from the internet and transforms them electronically into these images that appear on your computer screen electronically, and you print them out electronically through an inkjet printer. And there's really not much connection with a life force or a living presence. And So you're, when you do that in the air electronically, they call it electrosmog, and that's kind of, we live in an ocean of electrosmog, like cell towers and microwave transmissions and
Garage door openers.
yeah, Bluetooth. And,
Yeah, everything.
we're just being bombarded. And so anyway, I added, in Photoshop, I added this BG28 and a design, I made a design out of it with certain angles and certain numbers that balance the energy.
The shape BG28, 23.
BG28 is here and here and here and here and here, and then there are some of them are more obvious, but really subtly you can see angles and arrays of angles
Yeah, I can see
in the
it.
background, and
But
that's to center the energy with the life force.
Do you rotate the shape?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
No, it's just the shape, not the placement.
Okay.
And there's a whole vocabulary of biogeometry design principles that if you incorporate, like, you can center the energy in your house just by where you put your furniture. And
Is that like feng shui or it's different?
it's like feng shui, but feng shui is designed to work in ancient China. And it doesn't translate very well, but it's the same idea that you're modifying centering the energy by placement and design. But, the basic ideas exist in a lot of different spiritual forms, throughout history and throughout cultures. But anyway, getting back to where we were. So another way you can balance energy, like, if I was working with this and I started to feel really crappy, the thing to do is to take a shower, because running water helps center the energy with the life force. And so by airbrushing it with water, the idea was that,
You're giving it a shower.
yeah, I was giving it a shower. And then,
Interesting.
and then also, shellac is bug poop. So, I was, when I shellac it, I kind of introduce a living presence to it too. And it's like I said, this is the point where people start running for the exits. They're expecting me to sell them temple interest and incense and ask them for a donation
Start
to my
passing out pamphlets.
ashram. Yeah. But anyway, I kind of went into this slowly, and because it's a design based, and I could see it as a different way of approaching art, and a different way of using art to connect with people. That's why I got sucked in.